Welcome back to another episode. Before we start, I'd like to let you know that all my files are now at my mini factory. All of the models for free are still available here, but there's also some for sale, such as the Velociraptor, which I'll be building in this episode. And there's a special discount code that'll knock a couple dollars off if you guys want to follow along. Included are all the printable STL files ready to go. I also have a few other things for sale, such as this monkey selfie. Be sure and check out my mini factory for my 3D files as well as tons of other guaranteed printable 3D files. Way back in 2002, I bought my first copy of Lightwave, and one of my very first models I was learning the program with was this Velociraptor. And I even did some texturing and some not so great animation. So 2004 came around and I decided to remodel this thing a little bit, and I even sent it off to be 3D printed. At the time, I was super impressed by this, but it looks pretty bad now, especially the quality of the printing. I'm honestly not sure what the printing process was back then, but it looks kind of like sandstone. For this video, I completely remodeled it and reposed it into something a little bit more dramatic. Fixed a lot of mistakes, and then brought it into ZBrush, where I'm now working in a little bit over 36 million polygons. And if we zoom in, you can see there's plenty of polygons here available for sculpting. So now I'm sculpting in some additional details that I really couldn't do with a traditional 3D modeling program. After a lot of sculpting on the whole model, it's now time to lay in some alphas. I created my own using various photographs of elephants, alligators, and some snake textures. Basically, you just drag these onto your model and it creates a lot of really nice texture easily. It's just a process of layering these and using mask to make sure that the textures only go down in the areas you want. There's actually a lot more to it than this, but this should demonstrate the basics. So here's how it looks completed. And remember that crappy 2004 model? Well, I made a crappy 2018 model, which I then used as a basis to bring into ZBrush and create a lot of extra details. Now that that's all done, let's check out some renders. The next thing to do is to chop this up into printable 3D parts, and I also added some keys to make sure that everything fits together. I did a test print at 100% scale on my Form 2 resin printer. The Form 2 does some really amazing results. Due to the cost of printing, it is suited a little bit more to smaller prints though. I built the model right at 20 inches long, but for this video I really wanted to do something epic, so let's bring it up to 200% scale. For this scale, I need to turn to my Raise 3D N2 printer, which is capable of a lot larger print volume. In Idea Maker, which is the slicing program, I need to scale it up 200% and then start adding some custom supports. I'll build those for the other parts as well. So now it's finally time to print. For this model, I'm using eSun PLA Plus, and it's always good to have some extra. So now that all the parts are printed out, it is time to start cleaning those up. And I do so with just an X-Acto knife and some sanding sticks. Especially on those underside areas where the supports were. After cleanup, it's now time to put it all together. I'm using just some 5-minute epoxy, which bonds really well to PLA. The headpieces just slide into place. And then the rest just fit in the keys. Just doing some test fitting here, and it looks like everything fits perfectly. The teeth being so small requires a little bit of file work, and then what better way to clean up that dust than with a toothbrush? Here's a free tip for you. If you have some loose filaments, or also called spider webbing, you can usually take care of that with just a lighter. They should just disappear. Because I printed with no support whatsoever on the base, I have some overhangs that have a little bit of filament droopage. You can also help those out a lot with a lighter if you're really careful. Just remember that molten filament is hot. Using Epoxy Sculpt, I filled in some of the larger seams. I also added some extra detail where there was a small gap where the foot came together. Using some Vallejo putty, I'm filling in the smaller gaps. This is a repeated process you have to do a few times since most putties shrink. Now that everything is filled, it's time to give it a coat of primer. I'll be using Tamiya Surface Primer. This model is so big I had to move it out to the garage to do the painting. I really like the coloration of blue from Jurassic Park, so I took some screen caps and used those for references. I'll be using Vallejo model color to paint this. So first up is to put down a base color, and I'm purposely letting some of the gray show through to get some color variation. Next up, I decided to go ahead and paint the mouth. May not have been the smartest thing to paint it right now, but I couldn't wait. I'm going to go ahead and brush on a base color for the teeth as well, which I'll later be adding to. With a little bit of gloss enamel, I'm going to seal in the mouth color. I'm now putting on kind of a grayish green to start laying in some of the forms. Next up is to add some blue. Now it's time to start adding in some detail with the brush. I'm just using some various shades of gray to add some further details. Now it's time to start working on that base. My base color here is just sort of a sandy rock color. And the bottom part was supposed to look like kind of a fossilized layer of rock, so I'm using a darker color here. Using dry brushing with a lighter color is an easy way to add some depth. And I'll do the same for the upper part. Now I'm just painting in some random colors on these tiny rocks. I haven't really found anything better than epoxy just to add a really thick, glossy coat to the eyeballs. Using some Tamiya Panaline accent color, I'm just going to let this flow all over the model, just in the way that rain and dirt and grime would build up over time. It does dry a lot lighter, so you can go over it multiple times to get exactly what you want. And last, it's finally time to put the model on the base. And here's the final result. As always, thank you for watching. Be sure and subscribe and leave a like if you liked it. And check out some of my other videos. See you next time.